Hey.
Thank you so much, Keri, for joining us on our Trailblazer Tuesday. We have kind of 3-ish, maybe 4 questions we'd love to ask of you. And we know that in your leadership position, you've had a lot of various experiences with your team, your colleagues, and certainly your clients that will be helpful for some people in the business world. Do you want to start with the first question?
Sure. So, Keri, right off the top of your head, what's your biggest challenge that you're trying to solve right now? Is it related to your staff? Is it related to your organization? Kind of tell me or tell us what you're really focused on.
Our biggest challenge truly is the changing healthcare environment. So we have changes coming up in our payment models for our home healthcare and our hospice. So in 2025 starts the change for home healthcare, and it is completely moving to a quality based. So they're using our quality standards, our quality performance from 2023, so this current year. And then they're going to put it in a secret sauce. And in 2025, we will be paid as we compete to other home healthcare agencies across the nation.
Wow.
So that is our biggest challenge.
Does that involve technology? Does that involve changing the way that you're doing things today? Kind of what does that look like?
So we have in 2023, kind of moving into 2023, we restructured our quality team, knowing that we need to look at those outcomes specifically that are going to relate to our payment and, of course, relate to better patient care. And there is a document that's about 25 to 30 pages long that a clinician will fill out at admission. So it takes about 2 hours for them to fill out just the outcome-based stuff. And that gets all sent to Medicare for them to digest across the nation with all home healthcare agencies.
Wow. That sounds
very complex. Yes.
It's daunting.
Along those lines, in thinking about managing that really technical aspect of the work that you do, what would you say is your greatest challenge with the teams that you manage while all of this change is going on?
I think it's really looking at that strategy, right, of how to lead and how to empower the staff, because those clinicians are the ones in the home seeing what's going on. And so leading by empowerment throughout the management team and bringing those staff in to help problem solve during quality challenges, what's going on, how would they improve their scores, engaging them in that process and really having them own that, because we can't possibly be in the 900 to 1,000 homes every day to help folks over the year. It's how do we empower those staff members to do the best they can.
I love that you said empower. It's one of my favorite words. And I think that there's not quite enough leaders that see empowering their teams as a superpower. And I really do believe it is one. When you think about advice you've been given over time and as you've kind of moved up in your leadership position, what would you say is the best advice you've received as a way to be a great leader?
I think listening to others, I love to learn and kind of bounce ideas from others. And it was recent, a colleague that I was speaking to talked about Dr. Lee Thayer's work and the strategic ownership of problems. And how do you not take on every problem as a leader, but how do you nurture and delegate to your staff that are reporting to you and have that tiered approach throughout your management team that ultimately brings the staff, the day-to-day employee along and aligns those goals and outcomes to be successful. Because otherwise you would be overwhelmed with the amount of issues going on, no matter whether you're in healthcare or in an accounting firm, there's changes always happening. And so how do you engage folks to take on part of those pieces so you don't become burdened?
And how do you engage them? Can you give us some examples of the things that you're doing to engage those folks to really help own it?
hmm So this past year, we basically stratified our management team. We have a senior leadership group who are involved with the strategic planning. What does Mount Evans look like in the future? Because they're the folks who are going to now hold that piece to bring others along who either report to them and manage the day to day, and then ultimately the staff who are delivering the care day to day. And
Mm-hmm.
so we purposely stratified in order to now balance what are people truly accountable for from a visionary standpoint, the day-to-day management, and then ultimately the care that's being delivered on that daily basis.
So, you know, because we've worked with you in the past, that we're really passionate about power skills or soft skills, if you will. We spent some time with your leadership team regarding the improv mindset. We also spent some time with you on emotional intelligence. And when
Mhm.
you, as a leader, if you had to pick, you know, that favorite child, what would be in your mind the absolute necessity when it comes to a power skill that someone needs to have in your business in healthcare?
I would say it's thinking on your feet and using that collective problem solving.
Ooh.
So having really identifying what is first and foremost the problem or the opportunity that we're trying to solve, and setting now those as the priorities to start working through, because otherwise managers, particularly the day-to-day managers, start, it's what's ever in front of them today. they
Mm-hmm.
can't they can't process and use their vision to really look at, does this make a change for where we need to be in 6 months to a year? They're just doing the day to day. So it's really starting to now shift and empower people to say, is this really something I'm going to deal with today? Or is that going to go on the shelf, knowing that it needs to be addressed at some point? But getting everyone aligned to move in the right direction, because otherwise we can't make forward progress.
The one of the great turns of phrase that I loved is if everything is a priority, nothing is a priority, right? It's that whole challenge
Absolutely.
of, if you're trying to treat everything with the same amount of water for that fire, you really haven't been able to solve much, right? Because you
Right.
just can't spread yourself that thin.
Yeah, and I think we can agree that over the last 3 or 4 years with COVID and everything that's happened, the need for flexibility and that creativity and problem solving has become paramount in necessary skills today.
Mhm.
I want to ask you a question about, healthcare is a really unique industry, and it's definitely seen, I would say, more than its fair share of change during COVID, both with churn and retention and engagement issues. And certainly, as you mentioned earlier, issues related to kind of regulatory compliance and all of the different organizations that you work with and have to align with in order to get paid and to be, what's the word I'm looking for, kind of in compliance. So what kind of advice might you give for somebody who's, contemplating going into the healthcare industry? What would you say to them would be a skill that they should start focusing on now to get ready for kind of tomorrow's healthcare industry?
Mhm. I think it is that forecasting and having someone at your side who's an expert in strategic planning to really know in healthcare what's happening, what are the trends in your area of expertise, and then how are you going to anticipate those changes moving forward? Because it's a redesign of care. No
Mm-hmm.
matter which way we turn, we are constantly needing to reinvent the way we provide the care to continue high quality, but to do it in a way that is less costly. So that's been the mantra in healthcare for years. It's now at the post-acute side, the home health and hospice side. So we've learned from others in the hospital worlds, et cetera, things that may have worked, may have not worked, but now it's knocking on our doorstep. So I think it's having that strategic piece to really say, how do we do that? And I think in the nonprofit world, honestly, we have an advantage because most nonprofits are not competing with one another in home health and hospice in the state of Colorado. So willing to share what they're trying, what they're doing, how do we leverage one another in order to create a new model?
Isn't that awesome?
How are you,
It
I mean,
is.
with all of these changes and everything coming down the pipeline, how are you keeping your staff motivated? I would imagine that it can be tremendously overwhelming with the
Mhm.
state of change. And look, we work in industry that is focused on change, right? That's what we teach. That's what we
Right.
believe it's important to do. How do you manage your team? How do you keep them motivated so that they can put one foot in front of the other and keep the business going?
Yeah. It's interesting because I've worked nonprofit for over 30 years, and Mount Evans does have a unique ability and foresight where the folks that live here are basically folks that are taking care of their neighbors. We do pull some employees from down at the base of the foothills. However, the vast majority are up here in the mountain range. And so they know their neighbors. They know who they're taking care of. They've taken care of them over different periods of time in their life. And the mission is strong. We did a staff survey kind of post COVID to say, where's our engagement with our staff, right? Because the turnover in healthcare was crazy. We did have some turnover at the time of people taking care of loved ones and said, I'm getting out of nursing care. And we had 92% engagement with the mission at Mount Evans,
That's
which is just unheard of. You just don't have that
that is
drive.
amazing.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it was amazing. And so we're like, everything we do, whether it's good news or bad, we will tie that back to the mission and the why we're making that change. And a staff member may not like it, but they will go with it because it's aligned with the mission. So
You
it's
know,
just a very interesting to
Hmm.
work.
it is. And it's interesting, Bruce, that asked that because at the same time he was thinking about asking you that question, my question was going to be in an industry. And I shared with you recently about the passing of my father and in my experience with hospice and his experience with hospice in Michigan, and just what angels you are, what angels you
Mhm.
are. And
No.
I would love to know how do you practice self-care? What do you do as a leader to kind of help remove yourself, put some distance between work and yourself? What do you do to practice self-care?
So I myself I'm avid supporter of meditation. And so
Mm,
I start every day meditating and kind of putting myself in the zone that I need to be in to be a productive member of the team. So
Hmm.
everyone has their different, some people go out and run, etc. But meditation is definitely a support tool for me.
Hmm. Is it a daily practice, or do you do it for long periods of time, or how does that break down for you?
You know, it's basically a 20-minute get up, get the dogs out, do that sort of thing. My husband goes and does his thing, and then I'll spend 20 minutes just meditating, usually a self-guided or online tool to just say, okay, let's reset for the day and what opportunities will it bring?
you make it sound so easy. 20 minutes
It's a
is
lifetime.
so hard. I am so in awe of you. I work really hard to try to integrate even just like a mindful minute
Mhm.
into my life a couple of times a day, and it's so difficult to just stay focused and to also be kind to yourself and remind yourself it's okay if there's distractions, and to just come back and love yourself through it. So I love that.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you,
Some
is
of
there a
those days here I have to get up early, right, before it's light, because otherwise I'll miss that opportunity.
Yeah.
oh
So,
my God, yes, yes. Is there a particular tool that you use that you would recommend other people check out?
I just use the mindfulness app.
Great.
Nice.
It's an easy app to use, and you can do it anywhere. If you're traveling, etc., and it's just an easy, and you can choose how many minutes you would like to meditate with. So,
All right, I've got a two-part question for you.
Ooh.
What's your best skill as a leader? And what's the skill that you work the most on that you probably need to be putting more time or effort into if you
Ooh.
really focused on it?
Wow, feet to the fire.
I know, right? No pressure.
so I think that my kind of a double edge. So I think my best tool is I understand our business, I understand the strategy, and I get excited to be able to educate others do some think tanks, problem solve. How are we going to, deal with this next challenge and engage people in that problem solving?
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably likewise, sometimes, many times, I will jump right into that and probably not even ask you how your day is going or even know where that employee is coming from until I read it on their face. And then I think, oh, I need to step back. Because I just usually will just jump in and say, okay, let's tackle this today. Right. So that's probably my double edge.
That, you know what? That's really great self-awareness.
That's very good self-awareness.
It is.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things I wanted to kind of land everything in today is, can you share with us a proud moment that you've had as a leader with your team? Just something where and not specifically about something you did with them, just something they did that you felt like really reflected the mission and the leadership path that you've set forth and the tone you've set forth.
I think it comes back to when I first accepted this job back in 2020. So we were in the midst of the pandemic and I was actually traveling. And when the board of directors approached me to say, would you take on this role? And I was like, wow, I think it would be so exciting and so much fun to do because I just love the staff. Mount Evans had taken care of my mom before I ever started at Mount Evans. So I knew of them at the time. And so when I got back, I accepted and the management team was on the phone and they were all cheering, et cetera. And I came back into the building a week later and like my photos were up on the wall and all these "you are raw, congratulations," et cetera. And to this day, they'll bring that up every once in a while. And I say, remember when we did that? That was so much fun and you're so good at what you do. And I think, thank you so much for noticing, right? Like, thank you for... sometimes you don't hear that as a leader. It's a lonely spot, being the president. And so when someone just drops that little piece of feedback, you're like, this is all worth it. So,
right. Yeah. The right place.
Are you telling me you need good?
Just a little.
Yeah,
just a
I think what
little
Gail's asking for is like, and Bruce, you need to give me good feedback. That's what I'm looking for.
Nice. Yeah. Just every once in a while. Do you have anything else you want to
No. What I would like to do is say thank you to Keri Jaeger.
Yes, thank you, Keri. We really appreciate it. And we're going to include some information. Well, of course, we'll include some information about Mount Evans Hospice so people can kind of check you out and explore what the mission is all about. And so with that, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.